Damn. Etepu, Namaste, Haru Nefer. This is Kasankma Keparu with another video for you. And in this video, I want to talk about how to have psychic sex. But before I do that, I want you to hit the like button below. And also, if this is your first time to my channel, welcome. Hit the subscribe button to get notifications about when I upload new videos or do a broadcast. And also share this video with family and friends because we want to get the revolution started. And lastly, think about becoming a Patreon supporter. We have exclusive videos there on divination, on rituals, how to perform a ritual, a lot of white papers, so it's great stuff. Again, you can become a member for as little as $1 or $5 per month. So let's get into the subject matter at hand, which is how to have psychic sex. But before I get to the heart of that, I'm going to take an indirect route, which kind of relates to it, so you can understand fully the purpose of this and how to do it. Now, we're all mature adults. Sex is something that even a Kemetic priest should have no problem talking about. So I just want to give you an update. I told you that I had injured myself, and it was a pretty bad injury, and so the doctors were really concerned. So I did follow up with doctors, and it turns out it's really bad. So a lot of things have to be done about that. But what I was doing in the meantime to alleviate the pain was I was going into a trance state, putting myself under hypnosis so that I would not feel the pain. But the doctors were saying that's great, that's wonderful, but it doesn't get to the root of the matter, and some things have to be corrected. Of course, I know that, So let's talk about a little bit about hypnosis or trance state. You've probably heard me talk about this a number of times, and you've probably seen, people go under hypnosis or hypnotherapy or stage hypnosis. So let me just give you an insight as to how this works. A lot of us in the New Age community talk a lot about being at peace, that when challenges come your way, you need to learn to be centered and be at peace. The best way to do this, of course, is to learn how to put yourself in an alternate state of consciousness where you can be at peace. But the secret to this, and what you need to understand, and I'm kind of giving you an insight as to how hypnotherapy works, is that a pattern has to be created. Meaning, a lot of people go and take one hypnosis session with a hypnotherapist, and they think that that's it. Their problems will be solved, whether it be a childhood trauma or an injury or some vice like a habit or something they're trying to get rid of. You have to build a pattern in the subconscious mind. And what I mean by that is creating a state. A state is kind of like a separate alternate psychic state of being within you to where you can fall back to that. In other words, if I'm going through a very stressful time, I have a lot of anxiety, if I have prepped myself prior, I can fall back into that peace state. But however, if I'm dealing with somebody who's new, say for example, a new client, and they're having a lot of anxiety and they're just troubled, I can't just say be at peace because they have done no prep work. They have not built that state or that hypnotic pattern in their subconscious mind. So they have nothing to fall back on. So through a number of hypnosis sessions, we create that state, which is an energy state. And then when the trauma comes along or when something comes, which we call as the trigger, then they know how to fall back into that state and they can be at peace. So I don't expect anyone out there who is going through something to automatically just snap into a state of peace. That's unrealistic expectations, and the mind does not work that way. So you need to do the prep work, meaning you need to create that psychic state of peace and at rest. And that comes through the daily meditations. But not only that, it's a little more complicated than that, because now there are things in this world where we call it triggers that will trigger you to go into that state of anxiety or depression or anger. So when you go under hypnosis, you're given a post-hypnotic suggestion. All right? And we anchor that into some type of mechanism. For example, I may snap my finger, and when you hear the snap of a finger, you automatically fall back into the peace state. All right, or I may, if you're like rubbing your fingers. That was my first time in a hypnosis session, and my hypnotherapist, he had me rub my fingers. So every time I rubbed my fingers, there was a reaction. My body would automatically, from a physiological standpoint and a psychic standpoint, it would drop back into that state that we were working in the hypnosis session. All right. And those things are very, very effective if done right, okay? Because you have to also understand, as I said before, the trigger mechanisms, what's going to trigger you. You know, your mate may say something that gets to you. And we all have those buttons that people can push where we go off, you know? So I want you to just have that first foundation and understanding. And now you're saying, well, how does this relate to psychic sex? Well, I'm getting to that, okay? I just take it easy, all right? So years ago, I was in a military prep program, and I was really hyped about getting into the Marines. I wanted to do that whole thing, to be Rambo and all that, you know. But if you've ever been in the military, if you know anything about the military, you're pretty much separated from your mate or from women, and you know it could be vice versa. So you have to deal with long periods of not having sex. Now, you don't want to go out there and just, you know, there are sailors that, you know, have shore leave. They're going out there and meeting all kinds of women. You don't want to do that. There's a lot of STDs and things going around. So what I want to do is talk to you about something that could really, really help you out. But first, I'm going to take one more detour, okay? Follow me here. Let's say, for example, this is why hypnosis or trance state was practiced by our ancient ancestors, and it was so powerful, and it still is very powerful. So let's say, for example, you have a test that's coming up, okay? It could be the bar exam. It could be you're trying to run a marathon or something of that nature, all right? And we know from studies and from actual case studies that the trance state can increase your intelligence. It can make you a star athlete, you know, because when you're going into trance, any suggestion is taken as truth, and there's an actual change. And what's happening is that the modern psychology and modern science is saying that the actual chemistry and the physiology changes, and you become stronger in trance state. You know, you can lift up a car. I'm not kidding you, or you can run miles. But what that is that, and I'm going to explain this. Follow me here. You're shifting to a parallel world where there is a version of you who is a very strong athlete, or who's super intelligent and can pass the bar exam. That's what's happening, but modern psychology doesn't want to admit that, because that gets into parallel world, that gets into New Age, and then that could really hurt the whole field of hypnosis and hypnotherapy. And that's why they don't want to go there, because they're really trying as hard as they can to make hypnosis a legitimate alternative way for individuals to heal themselves, or to deal with things like childhood trauma or issues going on in their life, versus the standard Freudian way. Now, when the best thing to do, for example, and going back to me, using me as a case study, my injury would cause severe pain every day. So what I did was I created a pattern, a state. I would go into meditation or trance, and there would be this environment, which is like trees, waterfall, very green grass, where I would be, and I would be pain-free, and I can sit and lie there, and there would be the sun or Aten there shining down on me, and I would feel good in that state, and I would never feel any pain. But that state, again, remember what I said, it takes time. It takes a number of meditation sessions to empower that psychic state within you. Okay. Now the same thing works if you, for example, want to be a star athlete, or you want to excel at work, or excel at your tests at school, or anything, is that you would create a persona, an etheric version of you. And here is where we get into one of the Hermetic laws from Hermes, which is the law of like attracts like. Or what you have to understand, that everything has an etheric version of itself. Okay, because there is what we call as a template reality. And that is the skeletal version, or the basis of how this reality comes into play. So modern quantum mechanics validates this in a way, because they talk about who we are, nothing more than holographic projections. So there is a projector out there somewhere where the real template of who we are is, and everything that we are right now is nothing but photons. We're light. Okay, and that's why they often refer to this as a holographic experience, or holodeck. So there's a template reality, or what our ancestors, they didn't quite say a template reality, but what they call it was an etheric version of everything. All right. This is why we would put food on the table to give it to the ancestors, or to give it to the gods, because we knew that that plate of food also had a etheric version to itself. Okay. Now, with that in mind, when you want to excel at something or accomplish a goal, you would create a persona of you, of who you want to be, the ideal version of you. And you would go into meditation often to empower that version. Now, this person, it could be like maybe you lack confidence. So you, in trance state, envision a version of you that is extremely confident, that excels in everything he or she does. And through repetition of going back into that state, you empower that. And by the way, this is how we create an ergogore, or a pendulum. All right. Now, when the time comes, the challenge comes to take that test or to perform, you would drop back into the trance state, and you would then see yourself stepping into that persona, or that etheric version of you, and the two becoming one. This is what we call in the African tradition possession. You're getting possessed by the spirit version, that spirit version of you. And now, and when that happens, your dominant personality takes a back seat, and that other version of you now goes to the forefront and is controlling and directing all of your actions. So you then become super confident, excelling at everything you do. Now, this takes practice to do it well. You have to go back into meditation, envision this, and empower that version to where it is strong enough so that when you merge with it, it's going to possess you. And you'll find that consciously, you may not even be aware of things that you're doing, because that version of you is taking over. And this is where you get things like The Exorcist and all that, because which is true. Those are based on fact, because there are other entities out there that are very negative that can come into you. But we have psychic shields that are up. Okay, and those psychic shields are Nekabet and Wajet, and they protect us. But in this instance, what I'm prescribing to you is you're going to allow that psychic shield to come down, and to let that model of you, because you're allowing that thing to come into you, and then help you and direct your actions. All right. Now let's get to the good parts. All right. Now, one of the things that, just to give you an insight to me, is I don't have a strong sexual appetite. I mean, I can go without sex; it wouldn't be a problem for me. But when you're hooking up with your mate, and that could be a problem, because they may have a stronger appetite for sex than you do. Or if you two find yourself being separated over an extended period of time, or if you don't have a mate and you're not partnered with anybody, this is what you can do that could be very, very pleasurable. All right. Now, the first thing is what I talked about before, is you're going to need to create in trance, in meditation state. And when I say trance, same thing as meditation, because you're going into an alternate state of consciousness when you meditate. But you need to go deep, 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 and I'll explain how you do that. So in that state, create a world for you. Again, it could be where there's a waterfall, a beautiful sun, and trees and green grass, all of that, okay? In that state, you want to envision a mate for you, okay? And really be detailed when you envision that in the trance state. Have her be the most beautiful person, or your ideal person, or have him be very handsome and very charming, okay? Now, in that state, you can envision things such as anything erotic that turns you on, that's going on. What I don't want you to do at this point is to envision the act of sexual intercourse, because that would ruin what you're going to experience here. But I want you to envision the two of you in that state doing anything erotically possible. Now, what's that going to do is that's going to stimulate your Kundalini energy. And the reason it's going to stimulate it is because it's a tease. You're doing something with that ideal mate, but you're not going all the way. So it's very stimulating for you. And it's actually very healthy for you too. All right? Now, here is the secret. Here is the key. I mean, my throat is getting dry. Give me 1 second. In order to go into this trance state, you need something very important. You're going to need music, preferably etheric music, and you can get this on the internet. And this music is set to a certain frequency that would allow you to drop into that trance state and to envision the perfect mate to where you'll be doing erotic things with each other. You have to have this music, okay? Now, the problem that we have in the world today is that, and I've said this over and over again, the rap industry is a very evil industry. And many, especially men, have fallen victim to it because it is very 3D. And when I say 3D, I mean third dimension. I mean very material, earthy stuff, just only concerned with the physical. And that music focuses you so much on the physical, the ego self, that it pulls you away from the etheric channels or frequencies that you can tune into. This is why when I'll get into like an Uber or something and I hear the guy playing like rap, I'll say, excuse me, sir, but can you change the channel? Because I don't want to listen to that. Because it's programming your psyche to be materialistic. It's empowering your ego. And remember, our goal is to be God-man, God-woman, and divine being. And that music is purposely put out there by the music industry, by our government, to keep people operating at the 3D state. They'll never reach 5D. Now, this etheric music you're listening to, what is it going to do? It's going to raise your vibration. The erotic things that you'll be doing with this ideal mate is a healing energy. That sexual energy, or that sexual tension of not going all the way, is going to raise that raw chi force within you. Now, when you raise that raw chi force, if you envision an outcome or an objective that you're trying to reach, like say getting money, getting a better job, getting a house, it will materialize because now your Kundalini force is activated. But now, let me take this a step further. There are already interdimensional beings out there, okay? There are entities out there, such as beautiful spirits or etheric women, very handsome etheric men that exist in that other dimension. You can make contact with them and they will come to you in that environment or a situation that you create, and they can be there to please you and have pleasure with you. And you can, at one point, even take it far enough as to have intercourse with these beings. And it's so erotic, and it'll make you'll reach climax and have the orgasm with these beings. But you have to get in contact with these beings, and that's going to have to come from raising your vibration to go into that deep state of trance. There are some that that you can look up, and there's some books that talk about these spirits. Research Francis Barden's book, The Magical Practice of Evocation, where he gives you details about different spirits that you can contact. And these spirits are basically, they're sex spirits. They're very sexual. This is what they do. They have intercourse with us 4D beings. And they're here to help us and work with us. And this is the healing energy. So if you're separated from your mate and you don't have your mate, instead of going into the masturbation process, which can deplete your energy, try going into the trance state and going into the beautiful environment and encountering that spirit or being, to where you can have a transcendental relationship with them. They will speak to you, they will talk to you, and here's the benefit of it. Another beautiful benefit. They will teach you sexual tricks that when you do finally get into a relationship, or you do get back together with your mate from being apart for an extended period of time, you will be more educated in pleasing him or her. And your sex will be a lot more stimulating and erotic, because you have learned different techniques in that etheric realm from your kind of your mate in that realm. All right. So now here's another thing. A lot of people in the New Age community who have experienced this and done this and had these relationships in these different alternate states or dimensions have gotten addicted to it, to the point of where they don't want to have intercourse with regular people or have relationships with regular people. That is a very dangerous thing. So be very careful of that. Don't become addicted to it. It is there to help you because it's a healing energy, and the entity is there just as a temporary thing until you get into a solid relationship, because there's nothing better than a real solid relationship, okay? You don't want to continue that. And then there are things like a succubus. Be very careful of them, because they will come along and you will think that, hey, this is a pleasurable experience, this is great, and they will suck the energy out of you like a vampire. You'll know when you meet those entities, because it'll feel very negative, but they'll want to have sex with you. They want to do a lot of crazy things. And once you're done working with them, you'll feel depleted. You won't feel good. The etheric entities that I'm talking about will make you feel so happy and bring you to such a peace and pleasurable state. And you'll know that they're good and they're a positive thing. So just be on the lookout and be careful for those other entities that are wandering out there, and they may try to come to you and have that intercourse, but use you and just suck your energy, okay? So just be careful of that. Now, I've covered a lot here. And let me just go over my notes and make sure I don't miss anything. Yeah, I got it. So this is a very important part of spiritual culture. I want you to understand that. Trance state is what we practice on many different levels, from communicating with these interdimensional beings to teach us how to do things like build the pyramids, to teach us how to build a nation. All right. Now, the ruling elite, they're already in contact with these interdimensional beings, but they're in contact with the evil satanic beings, which are giving them all kinds of knowledge into the future, knowledge about time, space, the physical world, the spiritual world. So understand this, that there is a wealth of information and knowledge and growth to experience when you start working in trance state or in the hypnosis state, and the beings there are waiting to meet us, to help us. This is why I was using this to go into that state to heal myself, because it was pleasurable. It was a good is a good frequency for healing. Now, the one thing, going back to what I was saying before, the key is you can't do this with any regular music. You've got to have the high frequency music that takes you to an etheric state. Because if you don't have that, then it's going to be hard to get into that trance state, and the pleasure feeling and the effectiveness will not be there. Okay? And please, by all means, please stay away from rap music, which the beat is just detrimental alone, but the lyrics are even worse. It will program you, it'll trap your spirit in the 3D realm, and you'll never ascend to 5D. So I want to thank you all. This is Kasank Baha Keparu, son of Ma'at and Tahuti, and until my next broadcast, Amen Ra.